I've heard for the last year and a half from the media that you can't criticize Kevin Durant. It's not fair.
But did you criticize Kevin Durant?
Well, hold on. Absolutely. And I absolutely did. But I've been told for a year and a half, if you are a free agent, it is about happiness. It is about, my partner Chris Carter would say, I want to see excellence at the highest levels, and that everything is fair game. The second best player in the world joining a 73-win team with a 2-time defending MVP, fair game. That's what I've heard. And I've heard that doesn't make them some unfair mountain to climb, because I then heard LeBron losing to them in the finals. It's another blotch on his resume, another finals loss. So if Kevin Durant can join them in his prime form when they're coming off 73 wins and up 3-1 in the finals and had won the title the previous year, and Steph was the unanimous MVP, then sure, LeBron could. I don't think he will. I think it's unlikely. And they talked about in the report by Chris Haynes, and by the way, it is worth noting, Chris Haynes used to work in Cleveland and cover the Cavs. Yep. Now he covers the Warriors in Golden State. He is a good reporter. Like, it's credible, and I respect his work. So I don't think he's making this up out of thin air. No. And I bet CB's got more insight on that than I do. But they talked about the things that would have to happen for LeBron to get the $35 million, the max deal. I said on the show yesterday, I mean, depending on how things shake out this year, if LeBron wants to go there for the veterans minimum. Everyone has said the game is winning rings. Don't worry about your stats. Don't worry about this. If the game's winning rings, and if the rings are to be had in Golden State, and you can do whatever you want as a free agent, then I'd see no problem with it.
Let me shed a little light on the reporting. Please. I was told about a week or two ago, everybody, when LeBron becomes a free agent, everybody will be in play. Teams were mentioned to me. Golden State was mentioned a week or two ago. Boston was mentioned as a possibility. So imagine that, going to join Kyrie Irving. Philadelphia, San Antonio. So LeBron and his group know that if he wants to go anywhere, every team would move heaven and earth to clear the room to get him. So you don't have to just look at who's got the cap room. Okay, that said, I don't think he'll go to Golden State. I think the only way he could even consider seriously going to Golden State would be if they lose in the playoffs. And if they kind of lose ugly, okay? Here's the difference between LeBron. Like, there still are people in the league, and particularly former great players, that hold Miami against him. Okay? Fair or unfair, there still is that feeling. If he went to Golden State, let's say if they win the championship, and he goes there, this would show such an absence of competitive spirit and will that I think it would hurt his legacy. Competition, this is different from journalism, television, corporate America. Competition is inherent in sports.
Let me finish. I agree.
If every other sports show went off the air, it wouldn't hurt First Things First at all. In fact, it would help. Right. But it wouldn't change our ability to exist and thrive. If every other fast food restaurant ceased to exist, McDonald's would still be McDonald's.
Listen,
if every other team stops playing basketball, you no longer have a sport.
Right.
So this would turn the NBA into the Harlem Globetrotters.
No,
tour.
I agree with you. But isn't that what
this is the difference, because you're going to go with Kevin Durant.
Of course.
Kevin Durant went to a team that had one title, not two. Mm-hmm. Kevin Durant went to a team, well, let me put it this way. As talented as Golden State was before Durant, they are way more talented now. So it was one thing to join Steph, Clay, Draymond. It's another thing to join those three plus Kevin Durant. And finally, as great as Durant is, and when it's all said and done, he'll be arguably a top 10 player of all time. He will never and has never been mentioned in the same conversation as Michael Jordan being a GOAT. LeBron is held to a higher expectation and standard because he's arguably the GOAT. That's a difference.
It has a feel of basketball indulgence when you talk about someone like LeBron James going to the Warriors. We saw what it did to Kevin Durant. We don't know if that affected LeBron James in that? What would happen if I did something like that? So I wonder if public perception factors into this at all. Well, he had to have heard what people were saying about the Miami stuff. He knows what people said about Kevin Durant. The fans would go berserk.
But Jenna, I think we're looking at the public perception, the wrong part of public perception. LeBron has been very honest. What is he chasing? The ghost of Michael Jordan.
He won't get it winning 5 rings in Golden State.
Well, then let's. I may agree with you, but let's drill this down for a moment. I am a man on an island saying we are allowed to evaluate greatest basketball player ever by this crazy metric of who's better at the sport, not the metric of who has the most rings. I'm the man that is considered nuts for saying, well, LeBron averages more rebounds, more assists, has a better career value or replacement player, better box score plus minus, better shooting percentage, will end up playing longer, will end up with more of everything, therefore the better player. I'm considered crazy for that opinion because everyone's like, no, 6 rings, 6 rings.
That's not the only argument, though.
Well, it's becoming the only argument. The Jordan versus LeBron argument, LeBron's going to have him lapped statistically. The argument's going to be the rings. And if in the midst of his time to win more rings, Chris, one team cheats the system legally in Golden State and makes the mountain to climb to get more rings.
How did they cheat the system?
I said, well, there were a lot of, I said legally, but there were a lot of things that there's the one-off of Steph's contract because of his ankles. Then the one-off of the salary cap spike happening.
Well, that's just, they were fortunate.
Right, sure.
But that's not cheating the system.
No. Now, Draymond calling him throughout the year while they're supposed to be competing, you should come here next year, you should come here next year. Again, it's legal tampering, okay. So whatever you want to call it. But if in the midst of LeBron trying to get those rings, we get the most talented team of all time is formed in front of him. And then the rules are also, listen, if you want to be considered the greatest of all time, you got to get to 6 rings. You're not allowed to join, by the way, a few teams. By the way, when you're a free agent, there's a few teams you can't join, not going to be cool with it. Well, then what are we doing here? Then, like, what? No,
I mean, look, when you're debating the GOAT, you nitpick. It's not just rings. Bill Russell has 11. Mm-hmm. Okay, there are other Boston Celtics who have 10.
Sure.
So
Robert Horry's got 7.
Yeah, it's not just rings. That's just an element of it. But LeBron and Michael Jordan, I mean, it's how you got the rings. It's who you played against. And I've said LeBron has faced stiffer competition. But what do you think? I mean, I don't think you would agree with him going to Golden State.
Do I want LeBron to sign with Golden State? Do I want my favorite sport in the world to become a foregone conclusion? Of course not. I mean, of course I don't want it to happen. But I do, and because I was one of the, I think, few people that owned the criticism of Kevin Durant, I would criticize it. But what I will not abide is people that argued what KD did was totally fine. The competition, people act...
This would be different. Just like, I mean, look, LeBron going to Miami was one thing. Mm-hmm. I've said in principle, KD going to Golden State was similar, but it was more egregious, if you want to use it.
More extreme.
This would be even more extreme than what KD did. Yeah, in principle, it'd be similar, but it would be far more extreme. And again, unbecoming of a player that people think may be the best player of all time.
Let me ask you this before we go, real quick. If the way Golden State could, what if, just out of curiosity, if Durant, you said if they lose, what if Durant opts out and leaves?
Oh, well, then maybe it's a different thing.
Then it's a different thing?
Look, if I'm Golden State, I don't even know, like, if I had to give up Clay and
Iggy.
I mean, Iggy is getting older. Livingston's getting older. I don't know if I would. Because I would not, if they run through the playoffs again, if they go 16-1, 16-0, 15-2, whatever it is, I would keep my team the way it is.
You would.
I would keep my team the way. I know what I'm saying.
If it prevents, but it would also, you got to think about if it prevent LeBron from going. But they said we got to go.
They don't need him.
It's just in James Harden is also going to the Golden State Warriors.
Everyone's allowed to.
I mean, come on.
You're a free agent. Sign wherever you want.
Everyone is going to the Golden State Warriors. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.